Let's roll them. Welcome to Anatomy of an Entrepreneur, the show where everybody is a winner. And we are here today to examine lots of previous shows with my friend Joe Maddalone, who we'll introduce in a moment. So we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Frank, I know you have a lot on your platter, so you're going to have to remember when to put the speaker up. Okay? Lori, welcome. As usual, Lori K. is here to help us with our comments. Lori, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
You're so shy.
No, I'm really not.
Okay, well, let's move ahead. So this show is brought to you by My Instant Office. If you need a desk, a chair, a conference room, an office for the day, the week, the month, come on in, sit down, and get to work. Lori, do you know what we say? What?
Just add yourself.
Right. This show is also brought to you by the Huntington Chamber of Commerce. Joe Maddalone, did you know the Huntington Chamber of Commerce is the largest chamber of commerce in the United States?
Yes, and you asked me that the last time I was on your show.
No, that was a trick question.
You said it on Long Island.
Yeah, I did. And you said, yes, you knew that.
Yes, I did.
And we also discussed how many people come to enjoy the Fall Festival.
Over 200,000.
It's a pretty cool organization, you have to admit.
Oh, yeah. Great people in it.
Yep.
And that's what makes the organization.
Absolutely.
The people.
Absolutely. A lot of people great people who are involved. Also, the former associate director of the Huntington Chamber of Commerce, I once asked her, what do I say? And she said, just tell people it's the best darn chamber in the world. And so I do. And just because she doesn't work there, I'll still mention her Courtney by no.
Right.
Until we have a new associate director, which hopefully we'll have one soon.
I think we do.
Oh, are they installed?
I'm not sure, but I think we do.
Okay, good. Well, I won't force it out of you.
I haven't met her yet, so I'm not going to say anything until I meet her.
Okay. Joe, this is Joe Maddalone. Joe is the founder and president of Power Strategies. I want to welcome you on the show again. When you're on the show, we have a lot of fun because we get to look at previous clips of previous shows and we just kind of chat about it.
That's true.
We have a great
and I
time.
enjoy that.
Do me a favor and let's just give our audience a 1-minute overview of Power Strategies, what it is and what the goal is.
So Joe Maddalone Power Strategies is a consulting business where I help businesses and professionals enhance their business, look at their business plan, their business model, and set a strategy for success. And I like to say success as defined by you. It's not what success is to me. I help them set short and long-term goals and a strategy to reach those goals. That's primarily what I do. I become an accountability partner. I've been called a trusted advisor, but it's really a combination of business coaching, business consulting, and depending upon the size of the company or the individuals I work with, it's a deep dive into getting people to do what they know they need to do but don't want to do.
You've been doing it for a while now, and there are a lot of people who really, I wouldn't say they're dependent on you, but they depend upon you for your guidance.
Most companies work with me for over a year, usually 2 or 3. I ask for a minimum commitment, not financial, but a personal commitment of 6 months because nothing can really be accomplished in less than 6 months. But I have 2 or 3 clients that it's 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
And 1 6 years.
Wow.
And the reason is they understand that they're not business people, but they also had strong goals, business goals, and they needed some guidance. And, they reached out to not just myself, other professionals to help them grow. And I help put teams together to help them grow.
So what just popped in my mind is for you to give me a success story. I know it's isolated, but give me one of the success stories.
One of the best success stories, and I've actually used this person as a case study in one of my breakfast series. Her name is Christine Astorita. Her business is Breakthrough Physical Therapy. She's a physical therapist that specializes in children with special needs. So it's a real specific niche. And when I met her, she knew nothing about business, zero, worked as an employee as a physical therapist, but had a vision of wanting to have this business. Came to me with an outline of a business plan that she had from the Small Business Administration. And she had a goal within a year and a half to open up an office and a facility. I helped get a real estate broker, put together a business plan, put together a budget, and she reached her reality by not only being able to open up her own practice, by having enough foresight to rent space that was larger than she actually needed at the time, because she had one of her goals was to grow. And she actually, like I said before, spoke at one of my breakfast series as a case study. So I look at her as someone that really was a tremendous success story. And I always told her that after we continued to work together. And the proof was she went to San Francisco for some summit in her field. And then she sent me a copy of a magazine that was written after that summit that said a success story, and it was all about her.
Oh, how cool is
So that validated everything
Yeah.
I told her and made me feel great and
Yeah,
made her
bet.
feel great. She sent it to me, yeah. So, I mean, there are others, but that's one where the person really came to me with no knowledge of running a business, but wanted to know and knew she needed help. And it's
Yeah.
wonderful, and I'm so proud of her, and she's
And she-
doing very well.
And she started by coming to one of your events, I'm sure.
Actually, I was speaking at an event for veterans who want to start a business,
Right.
and her boyfriend attended it. He's in the military, and he told her, "You need to speak to this guy, Joe Maddalone." And she set up a meeting with me, and after that,
Right.
we still have a great relationship.
So I don't want to get fully into your events because we're going to talk about that a lot later. But a lot of people meet you through the events that you sponsor and host. And
That's true. I mean, my basic business is one-on-one with clients or employees of clients. But about 5 years ago, after doing these presentations through the Huntington Chamber, I started having my own. So I have workshops, I have panel discussions where different topics are discussed, and I bring in experts in different fields. Then I started a business boot camp, which is a 4-week session, one-on-one. It's not a group, 2-hour sessions with a specific agenda. And then what you're referencing is the Entrepreneur Breakfast Series. I started that 2.5 years ago, and it's 3 consecutive Fridays, usually, with a series of topics. So this will be my 5th one, but my 4th Entrepreneur Breakfast Series involved your professional team. So the first day was an attorney and an accountant. The second day was a banker and a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. All aspects of businesses where people really need to utilize their professionals. And the third day was an insurance person and myself. This one, which is my 5th one that you're referencing, the first day of the series was this past Friday, and it was on cybersecurity. The breakfast series is called Digital Marketing in 2020. So I put together a series that involved digital marketing, but I wanted to start with cybersecurity because it's such an important aspect of businesses to get information hacked. And it's not only their information, but it's your client's information that you need to secure. If you have e-commerce with credit cards and things, you really need to be secure. And I had a great expert speaker and who, along with me, discussed the issues. And it was very successful. And I'm proud to say and pleased to say that on Friday, you're one of the speakers.
I am.
To discuss
one told me.
the importance of live streaming.
Yeah.
And the other speaker is Len Marks from Len Marks Photography to talk about videos, the importance of videos and live streaming
Right.
to elevate your business. And the third session, which is not the 8th, it's the 15th, and that is on social media.
Oh, very cool. So you really can run the gamut. And tie them all together.
Tie them. It's a series, and if I could just add, usually it's one fee for the 3 days, and it's not an a la carte. But I tried to change that up this year, this one, where I permitted people to come to one and pay for one.
Gotcha.
And as we talked about,
Yeah.
the administration of it is a little bit
I bet it's a little bit more.
of difficult because you're not
Yeah.
sure how many people are going to show
Yeah.
up, even though they register.
So we could talk a little bit more about Friday later, but I do want to get into what you and I have kind of started to. We've gotten into like a little rhythm of something that we do.
Yes.
And so the last time you were here, we brought up a few clips of previous Anatomy of an Entrepreneur programs, and we looked at those clips, and then you and I kind of discussed. So I felt like, well, Joe's pretty good at that. Let's do it again.
I totally agree with you.
I mean, it was a critical and box office hit. Is that true, Lori Kay?
I don't know. I didn't see. I don't know what you guys are going to discuss.
Oh, okay. And Lori, if there are any questions that come up, you have at it.
Got it.
Okay. So the first one, we had on a gentleman by the name of Ed Santalone. Ed, Lori, what I said, he owns or owned?
Owned.
Okay. Ed owned the 5th largest sprinkler and irrigation distributorship in the country. And he came on our show to talk about how he became successful. And something that really struck me when he came on was talking about knowing your talents, what you're good at and what you're not good at, and how to deal with it. So I figured this is the first clip we could take a look at.
Okay, great.
So Frank, if you don't mind, as long as that speaker's up a little bit, enough for us to hear it.
I think my best talent was that I recognized people's talents and hired good people.
Right. So you know how to surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah, that's really the key.
Which is really important because I know in my business, and I've also read this about entrepreneurialism, always surround your people who are better and smarter than you and what they do.
Hence Frank.
Totally. You're not insulting me.
You can't do everything. So you want to make sure that there are people that are around you who can do better than you.
Right.
Because otherwise you can't grow and go to the next level if you don't have a support system. And you see a lot of people who own businesses who are afraid to let people be better than them. You can't do it all because frankly, who wants to do it all?
What do you think?
Well, there were two important things that he said, and he just threw the second one in. He seemed to say, surround yourself with people who know things that you don't, which an example was the woman, Christine, that I mentioned. She knew nothing,
Right.
but brought a whole team together. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to delegate. You can't do it all. And that's a frustrating thing. Sometimes I work with startups,
Yeah.
and they think they're going to save money by doing things themselves or hire someone that's not an expert. And, I read a phrase once, if you think you're spending a lot of money on an amateur, you'll save a lot more hiring an expert.
Right.
So he's absolutely right. And it's something that I tell people all the time. And clients who come in and say, I'm going to do my website, I'm going to do my marketing, I tell them I won't work with them because you can't do everything. If you're good at something, then focus on your business and try to delegate or outsource as much as you can. And, you'll grow quicker.
Yeah.
And it's the difference is working in your business and on your business, and you need to understand that.
Well, you have to know what your focus is in business. What's my focus? Well, my focus is live streaming. My focus is not selling widgets. So why would I start to build widgets for live streaming?
Right. And also, I mean, you said, my thing is live streaming. When I start with a client, I want to know their vision. Where do they ultimately want to be? And then I work back and say, okay, well, this is where you are now.
Smart.
And this is where you want to get, so let's put together a plan for it.
Yeah, what are the
and
pieces?
Bring in people to help you.
Absolutely. I can't agree more with that. And also having the humility or being humble enough to know that, you can't do everything and you have to delegate.
Yeah,
and I think that it's an issue for some people.
It's a big issue because they think It's their way. I'm the boss. We're going to do it my way. But, the most successful people is Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. They always wanted to have smarter people in the room because they want to hear better ideas and they want to be, if someone's got a better idea, I want to hear it. I don't want a bunch of yes men or
Yeah,
women
I agree.
around me.
Yeah. So then the next person we had on, she's actually the president and CEO of the Hop Hog Industrial Association. Her name is Terry Alessi Maselli. And Terry was on the show, and she's talked about mentors. And I thought that was also a great clip that we could take a look at. Frank, you're on.
My boss at the time came into the office one day and said, Terry, I'm going to retire. He was the managing director
Can
of
you start that over?
Long Island, and at that Long Island, my boss at the time came into the office one day and said, Terry, I'm going to retire. He was the managing director of Long Island, and at that time Queens, and he said, then I'm going to put you in to take my spot. And I have to tell you, I thought there was no way I would be able to handle that, no way. But, I believe so strongly in mentors. One of the things he said to me was, listen, if you treat people the way you treated our customers when you sell, and you manage people the way our management training tells you to manage them, and you just do the right thing for people, you absolutely cannot go wrong.
And here's the other thing. I think communication and setting expectations is key to all that. So
Well, I like what you said, setting expectations.
So, yeah, you have to set expectations. But Terry was talking about that you need mentors, and she was working at Dale Carnegie. She'd been there for many years, and then she got asked to take over the HIA. And at first it was daunting, but because she had the support and the mentorship.
Well, it is important, and if you can find someone to mentor you, that would be a great thing. Now, it could be within a company, could be within a bank, could be in a law firm, could be in an accounting firm, but if you're a solo person, it's a little harder to find a mentor.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the question, then what do I do? I'm a solo guy working by myself. I need mentorship. What do I do?
Well, what you do is go to a small training session that someone may have, and at a training session, and I'm not only referring to mine, but Dale Carnegie has plenty, and there may be someone in that room that you could ask to mentor. Now, another thing that you can do, and I tell solopreneurs, you could have your own little business and you need mentoring, form a board of directors. And they go, but Joe, I'm just by myself. Well, you could ask your attorney, your banker, professionals that you work with that want you to succeed. Because if you succeed, you're going to become a good client of theirs. Your banker's going to want you to succeed. And just say, it'll be a non-paying position, but maybe we can meet once a quarter to go over my business plan, or have a relationship with one of them and say, I'll meet with you once a month and I can tell you where I am and a problem I'm having. So those are ways for someone in their own business to reach out for help.
So do I go see that one specific board member, or do I have a meeting with all the board members together?
Well, ideally, you should have a meeting with all of them once a quarter.
Right.
But if one is willing to meet with you a little more frequently, that's fine. Also, the Chamber of Commerce, there are a lot of young professionals in there and startup businesses that reach out to more experienced business people for some guidance. And I know that for a fact because, I'll talk with new members and they'll say, I've been meeting with so-and-so and for breakfast or another person. And that is mentoring. It's giving them guidance. And then if they want to, hire someone, they could hire someone like me or, to help them really grow their business.
Right. What about family members? What about other support structures? I mean, they can still be an aid. They can be an ancillary type of support mechanism as well, can't they?
They can. It's very difficult in working with family members. It just is. Sometimes, a client will come in and say, my uncle's my lawyer. Okay. what does your uncle
Yeah.
do?
My nephew makes websites.
Yeah, and right. So it's is that a mentor or just someone that's going to help you start your business? Now, if you have a relative that has a relationship with you over the years, and I was fortunate to have an uncle like that, who really took an interest in my career and through school, who wasn't so much mentoring me in academics or other things, but in life, which is more valuable than anything else. And, so if you have someone in your life like that, that's a perfect mentor.
Right. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit now. I'm going to talk about entrepreneurialism and going on your own. How do you know when it's the right time to go on your own, or you have the chutzpah, as they say in the biz, to go on your own? Like, how do you do that?
Well, it's not for everyone. And this topic sort of came up last time I was on when someone said you need to have passion about what you're doing. So if you're passionate about a business that you want to start, that's fine, but it's a lot of hard work. So if you want to start a business, and most businesses, or 80%, fail within 2 years because they don't have a budget and they don't have a business plan.
Right.
So number one, if you want to have a business and be a solopreneur and maybe grow it, you need to find something, a problem that you're going to solve for someone, or have something that someone needs. So you could have the greatest idea in the world, but if there's no need for it, is it a business or a hobby? And this is a question I ask many entrepreneurs when they come to me.
Why do you ask that question?
Because there's a big difference. Some people say, I go to, I'll just throw this out. I go to flea markets and I sell things. Okay. And someone else can come in and say, I go to flea markets and I sell things. And then my question is, well, how often do you do it? What do you sell? Where do you get the product? Are you tracing your profits? Are you making money? And it's not just selling things or meeting people and selling your things at a flea market. That's like a hobby. But if someone is making a business out of it, where they go out and look for products, like the American Pickers, the show on TV, where they go out and they look for certain products that they know they could buy at an X number and sell at X number and make a profit. So it's really running a business to make a living or make as much money as you can in a reasonable way. There's a big hobby is I have passion, I want to collect stamps. Someone else collects stamps, but they do research. They really look to buy a stamp.
They spend the time.
Yeah, it's work. It's work. And that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when you have the passion and you're willing to put in the work, you don't mind lifting the boxes, doing the shipping. You don't mind doing the grunt tasks that have to be done because you're working towards a larger goal.
Right. So the goal in a year could be, I'm going to lift the boxes now, but in a year, I'm going to have someone that's going to do that for me.
Frank? So we have actually a clip from one of our shows, and this is a Huntington Chamber member, Dr. Charles Thompson, and he talks about going on his own. You decide to go on your own.
And I woke up one day and I said, well, I'd rather do this my way. A big part of my upbringing, my parents always instilled helping others and serving. I provide a comfort. I provide, I hope, confidence. And I hope that I engender trust in people. See, I think that people do a lot better from a medical position if they're confident in, they trust in, they're comfortable with their physician. And I think that that's something that I offer to my patients, not only to my patients though, I offer to staff, I offer to friends, I offer to hopefully anyone that I come in contact with. So I'm using this business as a way to, I'm using this practice as a way to sort of care for people more optimally.
I think that he meets all the criteria that you were discussing just before.
He's one of the few guests where I agree with everything he said because, people don't only want to know what you know, they want to know that you care. And Harvard Business School did a study on this.
And really care.
And said, whether you're hiring a lawyer or a doctor, and they're all the same in expertise, they're going to hire the person that they feel cares about them.
Yeah.
So, he pretty much said how he lives his life. So he's that's what he was saying, and it goes through his business, his practice. So that is a perfect clip that he should actually use, in marketing his practice. Honestly, it is, because he's showing that he cares about his patients. He never talked about practicing medicine.
No.
Which is why I said I like what he did. But he's showing that he's authentic, and he's a man of character and integrity. So
Absolutely.
That's why I said I agree with everything he was saying.
I can't agree more, which is one of the things about live streaming that's so cool, because it forces you to be authentic.
Right.
It's not like, and I'm not dispelling the importance of pre-recorded videos, but in live streaming, you don't have a chance to be slick. You don't have a chance to cut that out and re-edit it. It's the same thing. So
right.
So a show like this you get a guy on the show like that, and he's going to be really authentic, and that gets picked up by his customers, his employees, and also if he's live, people go, "Oh, that's a guy I want to talk to. He seems very authentic." You're absolutely right. People like that authenticity and the caring.
Yeah, and he said it with his staff too.
Yeah. So now I want to kind of change topics a little bit again and go to how to become successful. Now, this is out of the realm of most of us, because this gentleman, at the time he ran one of the largest corporations in the world. It's no longer one of the largest corporations in the world because people don't use mail as much. But I think that we can transpose what he's saying to all of us small business people. So, Frank, could you bring up the next one, please?
Got phenomenal advice 3 months before I became CEO. It was from a famous corporate attorney named Marty Lipton. And I said, what's the secret of success? You've probably advised half of the Fortune 500 CEOs. What's the difference between those who succeeded and those who failed? And he said, secure your relationships with your board of directors. They are the people that hire you, and they're the only people that can fire you. Do not face any life and death problem alone. So right off the bat, I had an existential, a life and death threat to the business. The post office at that time, which had been a good partner for Pitney Bowes for 75 years, suddenly decided it was going to put us out of business. They had a hardball playing postmaster general who thought that he should make all the money and we should be there making very little money. I spent 18 months, several board meetings, a lot of one-on-one sessions, so that by the time we ended up having to bring a lawsuit to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves, I had everybody on the board behind me.
I have a bunch of thoughts on this one, but I want to let you roll first on it.
Okay, so he had a board of directors. It was people that were advising him. So that sort of dovetails into exactly what I was telling people who attended the fourth Entrepreneur Breakfast Series, that you have to utilize that team. And the thrust of the series was not that you have an accountant, you have a lawyer, you have a financial advisor, a banker, and an insurance person. What we stressed is that every business deal or every transaction that you do, if you're leasing space, if you're buying a building, if you're hiring people, there are legal issues involved. There are financial issues involved. There are tax issues involved. So if someone just signs a lease and doesn't really have not only the lawyer look at it, but the accountant. And smart people do not let their professionals work in silos, which he didn't do. He got everyone together. And that's what I tell people to do. When you're making a big decision, he used the word life and death. Fortunately, it wasn't really life and death. It may have been life and death of his business.
It could have been life and death
of the business. Oh, I get it. But even, people don't realize, and most people try to save money, and they'll have these professionals, but they don't utilize them until there's a problem. But if they use their team of advisors, whoever it is, decisions are much easier made with information. And when I put a team together similar to that, I just tell everyone we leave our egos outside and do what's best for the client. Make suggestions that are right for the client, for their business, but then it's up to the client to decide. And then, that's it. And it's not only professionals, it's designing the website, the tagline, the content of it. So I put teams together for that, for the purpose of advising the client and helping the client get through an issue. So you always need people who know more about whatever it is you're doing. That's why I said you can't use your cousin to do your website. It just doesn't work.
Right.
And then someone, and you think they're branding you, but nothing's consistent in your message. And it's so important to have a brand that you are recognized with. I mean, people tell me all the time, Power Strategies Joe. We all know it's Joe Maddalone. Right. But that's because I worked at it.
That's your brand.
Yeah, and it took time. And some of your guests, like Daigo, everyone knows Maria and Diane are Daigo.
Right.
And you're associated with live streaming in a big way.
Right.
So
I get everything that you're saying, and I agree with you, but I also got something else from it, which I'd like you to speak to. And that is relationship building. Because that was a lot of that was about he did a lot of relationship building there and gained trust.
People have used the word networking, and I gave a seminar and never used the word networking, but it was all about relationship building, it's the key to success. Whatever your business is, it's building relationships with people, not only as a client, but could be an advisor. It could be a strategic alliance with someone. It's building relationships because you'll learn something from everyone. One thing, in growing up, my dad said, you respect everyone from, someone who's working as a janitor in your school to the principal. No one's better than anyone else. And that's the way you should look at the world and build relationships like that. Too many people, if they view you as not in their level, whatever it is, they'll talk to someone else, but don't realize, all the value that they can
Right.
give you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to move on again. We have one more clip I want to talk about before we talk about more about what you're doing on Friday's event. We had on a gentleman who's a writer. He's written for Newsday. He's been on the networks as a consultant, a political consultant. He's written books. His name is Ellis Hennigan. He's written books, on famous baseball players and their careers. He's written books, the Navy SEAL who assassinated bin Laden. And so I thought he'd be a great guest, and he talks about kind of passion, but it's more about exploring to get to passion. So maybe we can pull that up. Frank, we get that with the thanks.
Storytelling. When did you figure out this is something you wanted to do?
It's interesting. I talk to young people a lot about this stuff, and many of them seem to have very good, strong, focused career paths. I did not have one of those. I mean, I was a political science major in college. I, got out of school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had worked on the school paper. I thought about going to graduate school and studying politics, and I got a job on a little alternative weekly paper in my hometown in New Orleans. And then I said, I sort of like this. And I came back to New York. I went to graduate journalism school
At Columbia.
And I thought New York was great, and I loved being out in the street and covering stuff. And it seemed like for me it was a license to dive into worlds that I was fascinated by. I didn't want to be a mafia hitman, but I like talking to a mafia hitman.
I think that's really funny. I didn't want to be a mafia hitman, but I like to
to
talk to a mafia hitman. What do you think of that?
I think he had a passion for
Speaker, Frank?
doing journalism.
Go ahead.
All along, but he was sort of, experimenting or experiencing different things.
Yeah, you're right. Because it's interesting you say that. I'm going to interrupt you for a second because he grew up in a family where this was banter that went about, so it was a natural extension of being at the dinner table.
Yeah, and I think he had that passion within him, but wasn't sure what he wanted to be as a career, and took his time. And he's a bright guy. I have seen him on TV and seen him give interviews. But he had a passion that ultimately had to get to that point where he wanted to write and interview, be a journalist. I would call him that also. He's a commentator on news stations. So, it takes some people a little longer to get where they want to be and don't need that formal education. Bill Gates left Harvard. I mean, I think it was him, yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that formal education, but you don't necessarily need it depending upon what you want to do in life.
I believe that for most people, in order to get a passion, you have to explore until you hit on something, then it develops, and then it becomes a passion. And as long as you have the fire in your belly to move ahead, then it can become a business.
Right.
But I really believe you have to explore first before you can find a passion. You keep bumping into things. It's like being a pinball. It's in a pinball machine. It keeps bouncing around until it gets to the right hole and goes in.
I think that's also sort of the basis of a liberal arts education, where you're not sure what you want to do, so you dabble in chemistry, you dabble in English.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So, and then they'll find themselves, even if they think they wanted to be a doctor, then they realize that's not really for them, and they do something else. Now they're an artist.
Yeah, right. You don't know. I've switched careers a couple times.
Well, actually, I had this conversation with Maria from Daigo. She wanted to be a doctor until she started taking some courses, and then she got into the art, which really was her passion.
Yeah. I guess you stumble. I think we end up going down the paths we were supposed to anyway.
For the most part. And sometimes life circumstances force you to change.
That's true.
And you have to reinvent yourself. And, whatever it is, sometimes life just throws you a curveball, and you have to reinvent yourself, pick yourself up. And, that happens when a business fails or people lose their jobs in the finance world during the downturn. In 2008 and 9 and 7, the guys reinvented themselves.
Yeah. Lori, any questions or comments?
No, not right now.
Okay. So, Joe, let's move on because we're kind of in the we're like around the 8th inning.
Okay.
Bottom of the 8th. What's going on with the baseball game anyway? Where are we at with that?
It's 3-2 Houston, and they're playing in Houston tonight at 8 o'clock.
Oh, is this the last one?
Well, if they win, it's over.
If Houston wins, it's over.
And if Washington wins, they play tomorrow night.
Okay. Well, Houston's doing a pretty good job of coming back.
Except home field meant nothing this World Series.
That's for sure. So let's talk about your events and what's coming up this week. So describe to me more about these events, and then if you can transition it into Friday.
Okay, so I think you're referencing the breakfast series.
Yes.
So these are series that I have in the fall and the spring, and I pick a topic and then then put a subtitle to it, so to speak. So this was digital marketing in 2020, and I had cybersecurity, live streaming, and videos, and social media on the 3 days to tie it all together to get people to understand ways to elevate their business. It's all about getting people to enhance their business. It's all educational. The speakers that I bring on board are to really educate and not self-promote, although I'm bringing them in as an expert, so it enhances their status in the community also.
Right.
And the other thing that's good about the breakfast series under the old format is that the same people were together for 3 weeks. And what the comments I got after were, this was great, Joe. We got to meet people on a different level. It wasn't like a one-off, we met, hello, goodbye. They developed relationships and some people started doing business together, which was a really nice takeaway.
Which is real networking.
Yeah, and the other
Networking where you go to some.
it's real relationship building.
Exactly.
And the other
That's a
thing
better
I
word
did,
for
which they resisted the first day, I did not put name tags out where everyone was sitting because I didn't know where they were going to sit. But I made a chart where they were sitting during the day. And the next session, I assigned seating, which they were grumbling about, but sat where I said reluctantly, not with their friend. And then they loved it, and the third day I changed the seats again. So it was a little extra work for me, but it really worked, and they got a lot out of it from not only the presentation, but from the people they met.
So, because I haven't been to it until I'm going this Friday, tell me what I have to expect, not as a speaker, but tell me what I have to expect this Friday. What's going to happen?
So it's 8:15 to 8:45. It's breakfast. There's a buffet breakfast.
Yep.
People, I'd like to throw this out. The flyer that was out said registration by a certain date, which passed. But because it's an a la carte, you can come to any day. You can still register for any one day or both days that are remaining if you just reach out to me.
Frank, can you
So
bring that up for a second?
8:15 to 8:45 is a little relationship building and breakfast. And then 8:45 to 9 o'clock, introductions. I usually have everyone present say like a minute of what they do, and especially now because it's different people at every breakfast. And then I thank the sponsors, and you're one of the sponsors, so thank you in advance.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I introduce the speakers. And then the program usually starts from 9 to 9:40, and 9:40 to 10 o'clock is usually a Q&A. And I tell everyone it's supposed to end at 10, but it never really ends at 10. The last one, people left at 11:20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because what happens is some people will have one-on-ones with the speakers or the speaker. They'll be talking amongst themselves, and I tell them, you're not getting thrown out at 10 o'clock. But the actual presentation went past 10 because there was a lot of questions. And I expect the same thing.
That's a really good thing. That demonstrates how powerful it is. I guess that's what they call it, power strategies. How powerful what you do is that people stay. They don't leave and run back to work right away.
It happens every time. Like some people have to leave, but most people want to stay. And that's why I tell them, it's scheduled to end at 10, but you don't have to leave. And we're going to be here to talk to you.
So it's Friday morning. If I wanted to...
It's at Mac Steakhouse,
At Mac Steakhouse. Tell me how do I find you and all that kind of stuff.
You can go to my website at jmpowerstrategies.com.
Okay.
You can call me at 516-902-8972. I'm surprised I was able to give you my phone number because it's hard to remember that, never using it anymore. So that's the best way. You could send me an email, jrm@jmpowerstrategies.com.
Okay, pretty cool. Well, Joe, I really appreciate you coming on again. It's always fun when you come on and we kind of look at these little videos and banter back and forth. And I think our perspectives are fairly similar, but it's interesting to see someone else's perspective on the same thing. So I'm really looking forward to speaking at your event on Friday. You've been very successful. I wish you so much more success. And hopefully you will come back on in the future again.
Okay.
And we can rip apart more people.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and it is a lot of fun.
Great.
Thank you.
So that's it for this week. We'll be on next week at 5:30 p.m. with the whole staff here. Maybe Joe Lavolsi will bless us at some point. Frank, do we have credits? Yes. Then we will see you next week.